Well, hello there and welcome to another edition of the Big Q. Today we are talking about agriculture, but more of improved foods, to be specific. Of course, it is said that Africa is rich in its foods, and if managed well, it can feed her own continent. But of course, that raises a lot of questions, and among them is, are we eating right? Is our food nutritious? Do we know what we are eating? And that's why today I'm joined by the CEO of the Africa Improved Foods, Mr. Amar Ali, to discuss more on this and tell us what his company is doing in the country to ensure that we as Rwandans are as well eating well. Welcome to the show, and thank you very much for making time to
Thank you. Good morning.
Agriculture is crucial to Rwanda's growth and poverty reduction, as it of course is seen as a key opportunity for improving nutrition and health. So how do you work with the farmers, first of all, on ground to ensure that this produce reaches, your factory?
Yeah, so we work very closely with the Rwandan farmers. We have a commitment to source at least 50% of our maize from Rwandan smallholders, and we've hit that target this year. We're in our second year. We work, so far this year, we've worked with 54 cooperatives. It's about 24,000 smallholder farmers. And we don't just buy from them, but we work very closely with them to improve the whole value chain. We have worked with partners on financing and financing of inputs. Really this year our focus has been very much on improving quality. There are quite a lot of issues with the quality of maize in Rwanda and in the region, in particular aflatoxin, which is a kind of toxic fungus that can really cause a lot of damage to the liver. One of the main ways in which that proliferates is through dampness, through wetness, through the maize being wet and then being put in bags and stored. So we've been working very closely with the farmers this year to buy the maize more quickly from the farm gate and dry it and thresh it much more quickly so that the aflatoxin does not proliferate. Last year, when we were working with farmers here, we had to reject 1.90% of the maize that we tried to buy due to this aflatoxin issue. This year, by working very closely with them, we've reduced that to 25%. So 75% of the maize has been at our standards. It must be said, our standards are very, very high, and much higher even than, for example, the US. So we're aiming at a much, much higher quality standard for aflatoxin than you would see in the US or many other parts of the world.
But basically one would wonder, so do you actually train them? Do you get the farmers, get a contract with them, then train them on how, because it is known, of course, that most of the agricultural produce is destroyed between harvest period and of course before it reaches the factories. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we do train them and we do work with them. So we've been trying different models and we still have various different models. The main one we've been using this year is one where we work closely with them to reduce post-harvest losses a lot. One of the problems for small farmers is access to threshing and drying equipment quickly after harvest, because there are normally not that many machines and they're going around the different cooperatives, and sometimes the farmer needs to wait and it can be too late, and then they end up losing a lot of their crop. But by collecting the maize from them more quickly, we pay them more quickly in cash, so they get cash weeks before they would otherwise get it. We take away from them the cost of having to pay for these threshing and drying machines and other kind of storage equipment. So they get their money quicker, the grain is of higher quality, they reduce the post-harvest losses, and their incomes go up by about 20%.
Would you say now, a year down the line, of course, since you launched last year in May, have the farmers been able to meet the input that you actually need to see this grow? Because we do know that you also want to branch out to regional areas across. Have the farmers been able to meet this demand?
We're getting closer. So as I say, our target is minimum 50% from Rwanda smallholders of our needs. Our needs for maize are around 25 to 28,000 tons per year, so it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And as I say, it needs to be of the very highest quality. This year we will, as I say, get to about half, 50% of that. In order to take that up a level, we need to scale up our interventions with the farmers. So we need to work with partners to expand the amount of equipment that there is. We don't want to do this all ourselves, by the way, so we want to work with other small companies and cooperatives and NGOs to do this, so we can get closer to the 100%.
Of course, now the Big Q gives opportunities to our viewers to ask questions, and one of the questions that we got was from Mary Murego, says, what is the difference between them They said fortified foods. I think they don't really understand what you mean, what you say, fortified foods. Here she says genetically modified foods. What's their difference between them being fortified foods and of course we do know of the GMF foods that are now in the market?
Yeah.
You also do the same or it's different?
So they're two different things. So all of the crops and raw materials that we use are not genetically modified. So we use fully non-GMO maize, non-GMO soy, non-GMO milk powder. All our products are completely non-GMO. Fortification is a different thing. Fortification just means it has added vitamins and minerals. So we take our non-GMO ingredients, we process them, and then we add vitamins and minerals, like iron, like zinc, like folic acid, all the different vitamins as well, which are crucial for good nutrition. Absolutely.
According to data from the Rwanda Demographic and Health Survey conducted just last year, that's 2017, chronic malnutrition affected over 38% of the children, of course, under 5 years old in less than just a decade. So what's your role in beating this?
So we do that in a few different ways. It's obviously a big problem here in Rwanda and in the region, and it has a lot of negative impacts. We're working with the Ministry of Health very closely and the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion on a big nationwide anti-malnutrition and anti-stunting program. So our foods are distributed to essentially about 100,000 of the most vulnerable mothers and children across Rwanda.
You distribute them for free?
Yes, they're distributed for free by the Ministry of Health. Yes, yeah. Okay. And the objective of that is to bring down malnutrition and stunting rates significantly. There are also other programs that the ministry does, or that the government does, around hygiene. I mean, so malnutrition and stunting is not just about food; it's about other factors as well. And so, for example, hygiene, clean water, those sorts of things. Also, of course, we're very, very conscious that we want to keep the breastfeeding rates as high as they already are here. So we're very conscious that our food should not be replacing breastfeeding, but should be complementary to breastfeeding.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the first 1,000 days. Of course, we had a question here from Eric Mahoro who says, feeding a child over. Why are you concentrating on the first 1,000 days of all this?
Well, research in particularly the last 10 years or so, has really proven that those first 1,000 days are crucial to physical and mental development of a human. So the first 1,000 days means from the point of conception, so through the first 9 months of pregnancy, and then the first 2 years of life. And during that period, while the child or while the fetus is in the womb, and during the first 2 years of life, it's very important to get the right sort of nutrition. If that is not received during that window, the brain and the body sometimes does not develop properly. So this is one of the causes of stunting. And once that has happened, it can't be reversed, and that's the problem. So once a child is stunted, and particularly if they're severely stunted, it will affect their performance at school, it will affect their health, it will affect their job prospects, they're more likely to live in poverty. So getting the nutrition and other things correct in that first 1,000 days is a crucial determinant of the future prosperity of the people and therefore of the country, because the country, of course, cannot fulfill its potential if the people cannot fulfill its potential.
But one would wonder, why don't you just hold sensitization programs, go to certain district, educate the mothers, educate the health practitioners there? Why do you have to go through all this?
So those things happen as well. So there are many. Malnutrition is a complex phenomenon, and there are many different factors as to why it is happening. One of them is food. One of them is good nutrition. But there are other elements, as I mentioned, around hygiene, around breastfeeding, yes. Around your clean water, that are equally important.
Let's talk about now your structure. How is your structure at the African Improved Foods? How do you ensure that Rwandans are actually getting what they need at a special cut and not just profits for you to go back home with?
Well, a first important point to make is that we're not a normal commercial business. We are a social business. The majority of our shareholders are not profit-making entities. So the government of Rwanda is a shareholder, so we are a public-private partnership, and we also have the government of the UK, the government of the Netherlands, and the World Bank. So the majority of our funding comes from non-commercial sources. We also have a commercial company that is a minority shareholder called DSM, and they are a manufacturer of vitamins and minerals, so they have a very big focus in their business on how to combat malnutrition. But the important point is that the majority, or we are fundamentally a social business. We want to be sustainable, financially sustainable. We don't want to have to rely on donations or on subsidies. But we're not here to try to make big profits. And in fact, within the charter of our company, if our profit exceeds a certain commercial threshold, anything above that will go back to the government here to fund more nutrition programs. So we could never make big profits, even if we wanted to.
Absolutely. So 1 year down the line for the company, a question here comes in from Mary. She says, Rwanda, why did you choose Rwanda as compared to other places? Why did you first choose your best to be Rwanda here?
Well, I mean, there's many reasons. Rwanda is really the shining light for the development of Africa right now. The government is very competent, is very supportive of programs. President Kagame has made this a big focus for the whole government, is to eliminate malnutrition. It is uncorrupt, it is very private sector friendly, and it is close to other big markets that are interesting from a commercial point of view, like Uganda, like Tanzania, like DRC.
So it was strategically placed.
Yes.
So far, in terms of impact, what did you say impact has been over the 1 year? Are you selling your products? Are people appreciating what you're doing for the country?
Yeah, so I think we've had quite a big impact for a fairly young company. We've been around about a year and a half already. So one of the organisations that we supply to is the World Food Programme. So we are the first African producer of their food for moderate acute malnutrition. Before us, all of that product was being imported from Europe and the US. We estimate that we fed about 1.6 million people around Africa through the World Food Programme, in South Sudan, in Rwanda, but also in other places in East Africa. Again, so Rwanda is really feeding, part of Africa feeding Africa now. So that's been one big impact. In addition, as I mentioned, we have our products going to the 100,000 most vulnerable people in Rwanda. And we work with a high number of farmers, about 24,000 farmers, increasing their incomes, increasing their yields, and increasing the quality of the maize for the whole country. We employ about 300 people just within our facility, and within our suppliers and through our customers and distributors and service providers, we think about double that number, or we create about double that amount of employment for others. We exported about $25 million worth of product last year, in our first year, so generating forex for Rwanda. And also we, as we scale up, we think we'll put in about somewhere between $25 and $30 million per year into the local and regional economies by buying raw materials, services, and other things. So it's not bad for the first year and a half.
Absolutely. So we do take a short break, but of course when we come back, he tells us some of the plans, the long-term plans they have for the company, and of course the products that they actually produce for the region and Rwanda. Do keep it the big Q. Welcome back, and thank you very much for keeping it the big. Of course, I'm still talking to the CEO of the Africa Improved Foods, Mr. Amar Ali, and of course he's taking us through what his company does, not only for Rwanda, the region, but also the continent. Back to our questions, Mr. Amar. Originally, of course, you've talked about how you're trying to spread out your wings there. A question comes in from Tony. He says, regionally, do you buy, say, maize from Uganda, Burundi? How does it work? How do you ensure that you're already penetrating this market?
So, well, as I say, our focus for maize in particular is Rwanda. So we want to make sure we get at least 50% of everything we need from Rwanda. We make up the difference from some other countries, so Uganda is one of them. We also get some soy from Uganda. There's not much soy in Rwanda, and also from DRC. So the answer is yes, we do buy from the region as well.
After winning the Investor of the Year 2017 award, okay, let's just start from there. The Investor of the Year award 2017, how did that make you feel? And how did you just, a year down the line and you're already winning these awards? What does that even mean for you and as a company?
Well, it's very nice to win awards, and it's a great honour to be recognised by the government here for contributing something to this country. but our focus is not really winning awards. It's on combating malnutrition and improving the livelihoods and nutritional status of people in this country.
And now, of course, you've won the SDG Award of the Year. What lies ahead for your company?
I think what's really important for us is to be financially sustainable and also to be able to bring products to the market, to the consumer here, that are affordable, of high quality, of high nutritional value, and available to the mass market. I think one of the things that we see, that's really how we'll combat malnutrition in a sustainable way, not with funds from NGOs or donors that can help to really reach the most vulnerable. But what we want to be able to do is put commercial products into the market that are cheap, highly nutritious, and of very high quality, such that the Rwandan people and people in the region can get sort of imported quality at a local price.
Yeah, of course. And which specific SDG did you win this award for?
So the SDG award we won was actually for SDG 12, which is sustainable production and consumption. And we won that basically because of our value chain approach, because we're trying to build not just demand, but also supply. And so we're building a whole supply chain right from the farmer through to the consumer, and not relying on imports which are obviously unsustainable. So we're building up really the whole country in a sense. The other SDG, I mean, we actually fulfill a few SDGs in what we do. SDG 2, which is zero hunger, is probably the one you would most likely associate with Africa Improved Food. So that's a big focus for us. But then there are other SDGs as well, which we contribute to. SDG 19, which is around partnerships for development. So we are, as I mentioned before, we're a social business. We bring together governments, development organisations, NGOs, and the private sector, all to work together to combat malnutrition and improve livelihoods.
Let's touch on SDG 2. Of course, there was a question here by Antoinette Mohiro, says, of course, you've tackled a few other SDGs, but I think SDG 2 is quite important as well. How do you plan, to see that we end hunger actually in the continent? How do we end it? Because we say Africa as a continent is able to produce the foods, but yet we still have people who are dying of hunger. In your opinion, what do you think we as Africans are doing wrong, or what should we do to ensure that we are feeding ourselves first and we're trying to end this hunger?
Well, there's a few different things. So one is to increase the agricultural production. So this is what we do with the smallholders and also with other types of farmers as well, but particularly smallholders. That's critical because most of African agriculture still relies on smallholders. And the second thing is it's not just about hunger, it's about malnutrition as well. So somebody can be not hungry but also malnourished. So this is why we and that's part of SDG 2 as well, is eliminating malnutrition, not just hunger. So that's where we talk about the right micronutrients, the right kind of fortification, the right kind of macronutrients as well, and making all of that affordable. Because if it's not affordable, people aren't going to buy it. And the other thing is, is for Africa to really encourage development organisations and NGOs to buy African, right? Not to import foods from around the world. Particularly if it's being used for humanitarian reasons, people should buy African, and that stimulates demand, and therefore it stimulates production.
Of course, I'll ask you, I'm not sure of your background, if it's really in agriculture, but for the youth who are watching, it's very important that you've mentioned that we should do it for Africa, buy African, but for the youth who are watching and feel that agriculture is not something they should dive into, what would you tell them?
Well, I mean, it doesn't mean that everybody needs to become a farmer, but I think what's important is that people, where they see good quality African products made from African sources, that they support those companies, and they support that because in doing that, it will stimulate more production and make it more likely that Africa can feed Africa.
Now let's talk about your products. I know you have Nutri Family, Nutri Mama, and of course, sometime back in the social media, one was wondering, would you have Nutri Papa, or how does it work? What are some of the products that you have in the market, and do you intend to roll out more?
Yes. So the products we have in the market, three main brands we have, which is Nutri Mama, which is focused on pregnant and breastfeeding mothers who, they're producing a baby, so they have particular nutritional needs that are important. We have Nutri Toto, which is meant to complement breastfeeding, so in addition to breastfeeding after the age of 6 months, It's important to introduce other foods to make sure that babies are, in the first 1,000 days, properly developed. So NutriToto is really trying to be a imported standard infant cereal at a local price. And then we have NutriFamily, which is more for the whole family, really for any time of the day, and that's more of a balanced, nutritious meal for the whole family.
So do you intend to roll out more? Should we expect NutriPapa? Should we expect something more out of?
Well, so we now actually have, we have two versions of NutriFamily. So one with maize, soy, sorghum, one with maize, soy, whole wheat, which has just come out. We're looking at a bunch of other products as well. No plans for NutriPapa particularly yet. There was a meme going around last year, I think, where it was a kind of beer with NutriPapa on it. But no, we encourage men for sure to eat NutriFamily every morning because it's very high in protein, gives you a lot of energy, and obviously these are things that men and everybody needs.
Of course. Let's talk about now, as we sum up, of course, our interview. It is very important to know your plans, your strategic plans for the next, say, 5 years. Where do you see yourselves as a company?
Well, the first and most important thing is we really want to scale up our agricultural work here in Rwanda with the smallholders. So we want to do a lot more work to eliminate this issue of aflatoxin, to improve the yields of the farmers, and to expand our work with the smallholders. Second thing is to continue to do the work we're doing with the government. We want to see results. We want to see data showing that malnutrition and stunting rates are coming down, because that's really what we're here for. And we want to continue to expand our exports as well. So both our new products within Rwanda, but into Uganda and Kenya, because ultimately that's what's going to make us financially sustainable.
Absolutely. Do you see yourself branching into other parts, say West African countries as well?
Could do. I think the next country on part of the plan is Ethiopia, where clearly it's a big market, but also big issues with malnutrition. So that's the country we're focused on right now. But sure, after that, West Africa is definitely on the radar.
Well, thank you very much for making time to be with us.
Thank you.
I've been talking to the CEO of the Africa Improved Foods, and of course he says they're not just producing for Rwanda, but they also intend to grow the wings, but more so they are trying to beat malnutrition, stunting in the country. So do keep it the big Q, and do remember to send in suggestions on who you want to see on the show, and keep sending in your questions for them as well. Do keep it a big Q, and do keep it Rwanda Television.